It is the dead, breathless heat of midday in the plains of Mamre, and an old man sits in the shadow of his tent door. Watching the trembling horizon, picture it. The air is heavy, the livestock are still, and the ground is baked into a cracked mosaic of dust. Genesis 18 says, "He lifted up his eyes, and 3 men stood by him. They do not approach from a distance. They are suddenly there." He runs from the tent door to meet them, bowing himself toward the ground. He brings water. He commands his wife to knead 3 measures of fine meal. He runs to the herd, selects a calf, and stands by the men under the oak tree while they eat. But the paradox is not the meal. The strangeness begins the moment the travelers rise. 2 of the men turn their faces toward the valley of the Jordan, looking down toward the twin cities of the plain. See the scene. The departure is quiet, but it splinters the reality of the afternoon. The 3rd man does not walk away, and the text shifts its language with a terrifying suddenness. Abraham is no longer hosting a traveler in the shade. He is standing in the dirt, blocking the path of the divine, locked in a desperate negotiation. Why does this unprecedented bargaining between a mortal and the Creator abruptly halt at the exact number 10? And what did the patriarch suddenly realize about the men walking toward the valley that froze his final plea in his throat? Genesis 18. 22 inches, the King James Version, anchors the moment. "And the men turned their faces from thence and went toward Sodom. But Abraham stood yet before the Lord." Stop right there. 2 men walk away. 1 remains. But ancient Jewish tradition could not let those 2 departing figures walk into the valley unidentified. There is an ancient Aramaic translation and commentary, the Targum Pseudo-Jonathan, read in the synagogues of the Near East, and it tells us exactly who was eating under that oak tree. It names the assignments. 1 was sent to bring the news of a son to Sarah, 1 was sent to destroy Sodom, and 1 was sent to rescue Lot. 3 beings, 3 mandates. I hold this as their telling, not as proven fact. But watch what the text does. When you bring that ancient lens back to the biblical scene, the messenger of life has delivered his news. His work is done. Now, only 2 angels turn their faces toward the sulfurous basin of the Dead Sea, the destroyer and the rescuer. And Abraham is left standing alone before the Lord. He looks down at the dirt. He looks out toward the cities where his nephew lives. The air in the camp has changed. The quiet hospitality of a nomad has evaporated, replaced by the crushing weight of an impending execution. The judge of all the earth is looking down at a city whose outcry has reached the throne room of heaven. And Abraham does something no human being has ever done before. He steps forward to argue the math of mercy. Before he speaks a single word of defense, he must reckon with what he is. He is flesh. He is bone. He is a breath standing on a patch of sun-scorched earth. He knows that stepping into the path of divine wrath is a lethal calculation. The distance between the holy and the created is absolute. Same desert, same dust. He will soon call himself dust and ashes. It is the core physical reality of this entire encounter. It is what he is made of, and it is exactly what the valley will become by sunrise. He is arguing for a city using the very substance of its future destruction. He just doesn't know it yet. The creator of the universe has drawn near to a human tent, and a human mouth is about to challenge the justice of his scale. The defense will open not with a plea for his nephew, but with a brazen, terrifying legal demand regarding the righteous. What is the exact number of innocent lives required to hold back the fire of heaven? The 2 figures shrink against the jagged descent of the wadi, walking down toward the salt-choked basin of the Dead Sea. Abraham watches their backs disappear into the heat distortion. Then he turns to face the 3rd. Genesis 18:23 frames the collision. "And Abraham drew near, and said, Wilt thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked?" Stop right there. Look at the verb. Drew near. The English is quiet, almost polite, but the Hebrew text beneath it holds a blade. The word is nagash. It is not a casual step forward to ask a question. It is a heavy, technical word. Nagash is the exact posture of a priest approaching a blood-stained altar. It is the movement of a warrior stepping up to the front line of a battle. And it is the term for a legal advocate stepping into the center of a courtroom to challenge a judge. Abraham is taking the stand. He is standing in the dust of Mamre, looking at the maker of that dust. And watch what the text does. He does not ask for mercy. Read that again. He does not beg God to be kind to the cities of the plain. He demands that God be strictly, mathematically just. Listen to the audacity of the mortal breath in Genesis 18:25. That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous should be as the wicked, that be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? Picture it, the creation binding the Creator to his own law. But there is a dark context to this legal challenge. The book of Jasher, an ancient Jewish historical record mentioned twice in the canonical Old Testament, details the specific festering rot of the Jordan plain. Jasher claims that Sodom did not merely tolerate cruelty, they legislated it. Their judges enforced laws that punished charity. A traveler, given a bed, was robbed. A woman who gave bread to a starving man was burned alive in the public square. I offer it as that, one tradition's record. But it exposes the terrifying reality Abraham is staring down. The city is not just broken, it is an organized machine of malice. The judge of all the earth has come down to dismantle the machine. Yet, Abraham knows his nephew Lot is asleep inside those walls. The man who once shared his camp, who separated from him to pitch his tent towards Sodom. So the patriarch attempts to build a human shield. He establishes a legal threshold of covering. He throws out a number that represents a complete, functioning, unshakable block of humanity. 50, he asks. Peradventure there be 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou also destroy and not spare the place for the 50 righteous that are therein? Same desert, same stakes. He is asking if 50 clean hands can absorb the guilt of a kingdom of the damned. He is testing the weight of righteousness against the gravity of wrath. The Lord answers him instantly. If I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sakes. The precedent is set. The terms of the trial are accepted. The Creator agrees to let 50 righteous men be the ransom for thousands of wicked ones. But the moment the divine concession rings out in the heavy afternoon heat, a cold panic must have gripped the old man's chest. Because if 50 is the cost of salvation, what happens when Abraham suddenly realizes his nephew's city cannot pay it? The silence under the oak tree is absolute. The Creator has agreed to 50, but Abraham's mind is doing the terrifying math of the Jordan Valley. Lot, his wife, his daughters, the sons-in-law. That is a handful of souls scattered in a metropolis of wickedness. The math is failing. 50 is an impossible ransom for a society completely engineered for malice. He has to lower the price, but stepping deeper into the negotiation requires him to acknowledge the absolute peril of his position. Genesis 18:27 records the exact words he uses to break the silence. And Abraham answered and said, Behold now, I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, which am but dust and ashes. Stop right there. He does not call himself a prophet. He does not invoke his wealth, his herds, or his military victory over the kings of the East. He strips his identity down to the raw, lifeless elements of the ground beneath his sandals. But look at the Hebrew. Watch what the text does. The phrase is afar wa ephah. Two words that sound almost identical, locked together in an ancient rhythmic hum. Afar is the dust. It is the loose soil of Genesis 2. The unformed earth, the breath of God blew into to make a living soul. It is creation. Ephah is the ashes. It is the pulverized, burnt residue of something that has been completely consumed by fire. It is destruction. Abraham stands at Mamre, balancing both words in his mouth. See the scene. He is reminding the judge that he is a frail, temporary thing, caught between the breath that made him and the fire that could end him. He is standing on the afar, pleading for a city that is hours away from becoming Ephah. Same dirt, two destinies. He uses this profound vulnerability to execute a brilliant legal maneuver. He does not ask for a massive discount all at once. He chips at the stone. Genesis 18:28 captures the drop. Peradventure there shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. Wilt thou destroy all the city for lack of 5? Sit with that. It is a terrifying gamble. He is asking the judge to overlook a 5-soul deficit. Why 5? Look at the geography of the Jordan Basin. The cross-reference is Genesis 14, which names exactly 5 cities in this wicked confederation: Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Zoar. If the original 50 was divided equally across the plain, it meant 10 righteous men per city. By dropping the number to 45, Abraham is legally asking if 9 men per city are enough to hold back the wrath of heaven. The ancient Midrash Rabbah notes this precise calculation. The rabbis argued that Abraham was testing whether God himself would step in as the 10th man for each city, completing the quota of mercy. I offer it as that, one tradition's record, but it reveals the surgical precision of this ancient bargaining. The Lord answers him instantly. If I find there 40 and 5, I will not destroy it. The price drops. The first margin of mercy is granted, but Abraham knows 9 men cannot be found in the streets of Sodom. He has pushed the boundary, but the gap is still too wide, and the sun is beginning its slow bleed into the western horizon. The 50 has cracked, but 45 is still a death sentence. To save his bloodline, he must carve the number down to a fraction of its original weight. How deep into the mathematics of mercy will the Creator allow a man made of dust to push? The sun begins its slow descent over the oak tree at Mamre, casting long shadows across the dust. The 45 is secured, but the victory is hollow. The old man stands before the Creator, knowing the plain of the Jordan is a wasteland of the soul. He must press the judge again. Genesis 18:29 captures the rhythm of a man stepping onto the cracking ice of divine patience. And he spake unto him yet again, and said, Peradventure there shall be 40 found there. Stop right there. Look at the progression. He drops the ransom by 5. But the Hebrew verb anchoring that verse is yasaf. It means to add, to exceed, to do something again with increasing intensity. Abraham is not merely speaking. He is actively encroaching on a holy boundary. He is pushing into the fire. The Lord replies with terrifying calm, I will not do it for 40's sake. 40. Sit with that number. In the biblical architecture, 40 is never just a digit. It is the ancient coordinate of judgment. Abraham's ancestors passed down the terrifying memory of the deluge. Turn the scroll back to Genesis 7, and you find the exact metric of ancient wrath. The windows of heaven opened, and the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. The number 40 holds the weight of a world-ending cataclysm. By anchoring his plea at 40, Abraham is pulling the shadow of the flood directly into the dust of Mamre. He is asking if the judge of all the earth will suspend a localized annihilation for the exact number of days it took to drown the ancient world. Same God, same arithmetic of justice. But Abraham feels the terror of his own audacity. To drop below 40 is to abandon the safety of minor fractions. He is no longer asking for a slight margin of error in a massive city. He is asking for an unprecedented, almost scandalous suspension of the law. He is begging God to let the rot remain for the sake of a tiny, invisible remnant. He braces himself against the dry wind. He speaks the words of Genesis 18:30. "Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Peradventure there shall 30 be found there." Watch what the text does. He adds a shield to his plea. "Oh, let not the Lord be angry." The mortal realizes he is testing the absolute limits of grace. He is whittling down the ransom of a city, while the two angels are walking steadily closer to its gates. Every drop in the number is a frantic race against their footsteps. The sun is setting, time is running out. The Lord answers, "I will not do it if I find 30 there." 30 men. That is less than a single extended nomad camp in the ancient Near East, a fraction of the city's population. And yet, the silence from the valley implies a horrifying reality. Even 30 clean hands cannot be found in the twisting, violent streets of Sodom. The negotiation is accelerating into a free fall. If 30 righteous souls cannot be produced to buy the city's life, how close to zero is Abraham willing to go before the Creator finally shuts the door of mercy? The shadows at Mamre stretch out like long, dark fingers across the cracked earth. The blistering heat of the day is finally breaking, but the terror under the oak tree is only compounding. 30 righteous souls could not be found. The city is a wasteland. Abraham is stripping his legal defense down to the bone. Genesis 18:31 records the plunge. And he said, "Behold now, I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord. Peradventure there shall be 20 found there." Stop right there. Why 20? Why not drop the price straight to the floor? In the ancient Hebrew mindset, numbers are never just placeholders, they are legal boundaries. Turn the scroll forward to Numbers chapter 14, to the generation that wanders the wilderness, when God draws the line of absolute accountability for the rebellion of a nation. He sets it at the exact age of 20. 20 is the threshold of adulthood. It is the age a boy is drafted into the camp's army. It is the exact moment a citizen is held fully, legally responsible for the blood on his own hands. By dropping the ransom to 20, Abraham is asking a devastating question. He is no longer asking for a righteous community. He is asking if there is even one accountable generation left in the city. Can 20 men, a single righteous council, a fraction of a fighting force, stand in the breach for a civilization that has deliberately chosen the dark? The Book of Jubilees, kept whole for centuries in the Ethiopian Bible, records the total rot of the Jordan Plain. It says the men of Sodom were sinners exceedingly, polluting themselves and committing every uncleanness on the earth, multiplying their iniquity until the Creator could no longer look away. I hold this as their telling, not as proven fact, but it illuminates the abyss Abraham is staring into. The corruption was not isolated to the king or the magistrates. It had infected the youth. It had consumed the 20-year-olds. The entire structure of the society was rotting from the ground up. Picture it. The old man trembling in the twilight. He is bargaining with the judge over a city that has already convicted itself. While Abraham stands at Mamre, the two angels are walking steadily closer to the gates of Sodom. The sun is sinking. The shadows are turning cold. The countdown is racing against the footsteps of the destroyers. The Lord answers him in the dying light. I will not destroy it for 20's sake. Reading, not inventing. The mercy of the Creator is matching the audacity of the dust, step for step. God is yielding. He is letting the mortal push the boundary of justice to its absolute breaking point. But 20 is still too high. Abraham is doing the agonizing math of his nephew's household. Lot, his wife, his unwed daughters, his married daughters, his sons-in-law, even if every single one of them has kept their garments clean in the filth of Sodom, they do not add up to 20. The rescue is slipping through his fingers. He has one strike left. He knows that to speak again is to risk the very wrath he is trying to hold back. But blood is thicker than fear. He prepares to name the absolute minimum unit of human preservation. If 20 men cannot save a city, what is the exact, irreducible number of righteous souls required to keep the fire from falling from the sky? The sun drops below the hills of Hebron, throwing the oak of Mamre into deep shadow. The camp is silent. Abraham braces himself in the dirt for his final, agonizing attempt. He has pushed the judge of all the earth from 50 down to 20. But the man of dust knows the terrifying reality of his nephew's household. 20 is still a death sentence. Genesis 18:32 captures the absolute flaw of the descent, and he said, "Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet but this once. Peradventure 10 shall be found there." Stop right there. He binds himself to this final number. I will speak yet, but this once. But why 10? Why not 5? Why not abandon the math and plead for Lot by name? In the ancient Hebrew mind, 10 is not a random digit. It is a legal and spiritual boundary. The Midrash Rabbah teaches that 10 men constitute a minyan, the minimum unit required to form a congregation, to hold a public prayer, or to build a functioning community. Less than 10 is merely a fractured collection of individuals. 10 is a society. I hold this as one reading, not the final word. But watch what the biblical text does with this number everywhere else. Pull the cross-reference from Ruth chapter 4. When Boaz needs to establish a legally binding court at the city gate to redeem a bloodline, he does not gather 3 men or 5. He gathers exactly 10 elders. 10 is the threshold of legal jurisdiction, same metric, same law. Abraham is not asking God to spare Sodom for a few scattered survivors. He is asking if the city still possesses a single, functioning, righteous community. If 10 clean hands can be found, the societal structure is not entirely dead. But there is a darker arithmetic hiding beneath the surface, a haunting shadow that hangs over this negotiation. The old man is remembering the flood. How many righteous souls were in the ark? 8. The Apostle Peter confirms it centuries later. Exactly 8 souls were saved by water, and 8 was not enough to hold back the destruction of the ancient world. 8 was only enough to save a boat. Sit with that. Abraham knows 8 cannot ransom a city, so he draws his final line at 10. Picture it. He is standing in the twilight, mentally counting Lot, his wife, and their daughters. He is desperately hoping the sons-in-law will push the count to the legal floor of mercy. He is betting the survival of the Jordan Valley on a margin of 1 or 2 heartbeats. The Creator looks at the mortal advocate, the judge of all the earth issues, his final, chilling concession. And he said, I will not destroy it for 10's sake. The bargaining is over. The terms are sealed. If a single righteous community of 10 can be found in the twisting, violent streets of Sodom, the sulfur will be held back in the heavens. But the negotiation halts instantly. Abraham does not push for 9. The Lord does not offer 8. The silence falls heavy over the cooling sand. The deal is mathematically perfect, but the 2 angels have already reached the city gates. The true horror of this legal defense is about to be tested in the dark. The ransom of 10 is accepted, but the sun has officially set on the valley. The Creator departs into the night, leaving the man of dust alone with the terrifying arithmetic of his own making. If 10 is the irreducible minimum required to hold back annihilation, what happens when a righteous man discovers his own bloodline falls short of the scale? The negotiation does not conclude with a handshake or a guarantee. It ends in a chilling, abrupt vacuum. Genesis 18:33 records the exact moment the threshold is set in stone. And the Lord went his way, as soon as he had left communing with Abraham, and Abraham returned unto his place. Stop right there. There is no farewell. There is no divine reassurance that the 10 souls will actually be found. Look at the Hebrew verb for left communing. It is kala. It means to finish, to completely exhaust, to bring to an absolute, unyielding end. The Creator has allowed the man of dust to empty his entire legal defense. Every argument has been spent. The exact moment the number 10 is accepted, the presence vanishes from the oak of Mamre. Abraham is left standing alone in the dark. Picture it. The wind sweeping off the Hebron hills is suddenly cold. The old man looks down at the ground. He had just called himself dust and ashes. He had used his frail mortality to push the judge of all the earth to the absolute limit of grace. He had secured the ruling. If 10 clean hands exist, the valley lives. The text says he returned unto his place. The Hebrew word is makom. It doesn't just mean he walked back to his tent. In ancient Jewish thought, a makom is a designated station, a legal standing. The trial is over. He steps down from the advocate's bench. He is just a mortal man again. But the story state is racing simultaneously down into the basin. Turn the scroll 1 verse forward, crossing the chapter break into Genesis 19:1. And there came 2 angels to Sodom at even, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. Same night, same timeline. While Abraham is walking back to his camp, the 2 figures he watched leave earlier that afternoon are stepping into the neon glare of the Jordan plain. The Targum pseudo-Jonathan claimed they carried 2 distinct mandates, one to rescue, one to destroy. Abraham does not know this. He only knows his terrifying arithmetic. He sits in the dark of his tent, and he begins to count the bloodline again. He knows Lot is there. He knows Lot's wife is there. He knows of the 2 unwed daughters living in the house. That is 4 souls. To reach the legal floor of 10, to trigger the mercy he just fought so hard to secure, he needs 6 more. He is banking the survival of an entire civilization on the desperate hope that Lot's married daughters and their husbands have not been entirely consumed by the city's rot. But what if the math fails? What if the sons-in-law look at the coming wrath and think it is a joke? What if the malice of Sodom has eaten so far into his nephew's family tree that 10 righteous souls cannot be scraped together from the entire metropolis? I hold this as one tradition's careful mapping of the math, not the final word. But it illuminates the agonizing silence of this particular night. Abraham won the courtroom battle. He secured the legal threshold. But a terrible realization is creeping into the margins of his camp. He has negotiated a ransom his family might be entirely too bankrupt to pay. The night stretches out, heavy and absolute. The man of dust can do nothing now but wait for the sun. The decree has been spoken, the angels are inside the walls. The scale of divine justice is balancing in the dark. When he wakes up a few hours later and walks back to the exact patch of dirt where he stood before the Lord, what will the horizon look like? The sun rises over the hills of Hebron, pale and silent. Abraham walks out of his tent into the cool morning air. He does not look at his herds. He does not look at his servants. He walks directly back to the exact patch of dirt where he stood the day before. The makom, the place of the trial. Picture it. He stands under the oak tree at Mamre, and he turns his face toward the valley of the Jordan. Genesis 19:27, anchors the devastating morning. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord. And he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and, lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. Stop right there. The smoke of a furnace. The Hebrew word is kibshan, a smelting kiln, an industrial oven of absolute, total consumption. The trial is over. The verdict is written in the sky. Abraham looks at the rising column of gray blocking out the horizon, and he knows instantly. The math failed. There were not 10. The rot of the city had eaten so deep into his nephew's bloodline that the legal floor of mercy collapsed. We know now what the old man, staring at the smoke, did not know then. Only 3 souls made it out of that valley alive: Lot and his 2 daughters. 8 could not save the ancient world from the water, and 3 could not save the Jordan plain from the fire. Go back now to the opening image under the oak tree. The old man bowing in the midday heat, the brazen advocate blocking the path of the divine, calling himself Afar Wa Ephah, dust and ashes. You have read that scene 100 times as a simple display of humility. But today, you have the terrifying symmetry of the text. He used the dust and the ashes to beg for the city. And now, the city has become the very thing he claimed to be. Same elements, 2 destinies. The judge of all the earth did exactly right. He honored the legal contract. He agreed to the ransom of 10. But the city was too spiritually bankrupt to pay it. I hold this as one reading, not the final word. But it resolves why the countdown stopped where it did. 10 was the irreducible minimum of a righteous society, and Sodom could not produce it. Yet, the desert is still holding the rest, because we are left wondering why the Creator, who already knew the exact census of the plain, who already knew the math would fail, stood in the dirt at Mamre and let a mortal man argue the terms of mercy anyway. The Maker of the universe allowed the creation to weigh the scales. If you stayed with me through the heat of the day and the smoke of the morning, comment the word "watch" down below. Subscribe to this channel, because there are more ancient texts buried in these sands that change the way we read our Bibles. And send this to one person who loves the Old Testament, but has never heard the terrifying math of Genesis 18. The fire is gone, the judgment is finished, but the dust remains.